Da 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 da. Hello and welcome. I am Zombie Kitty and welcome to another review video. So I've previously done these types of videos on Free Guy, Spider-Man No Way Home and Squid Game. And I went to see Jurassic World Dominion yesterday, so that was the 15th at the time of recording this. It's the 16th today. And I was really looking forward to it. I liked the previous Jurassic World films, and originally what I was going to do was write up a review on it. However, after seeing the film and sleeping on it and thinking about it, I actually decided that I have too many thoughts on it, a lot of it spoilerish, and I didn't want to do a spoiler article. So I thought, well, let's do another review video in the same format that I've done the previous review videos for, and I can just kind of go mad with my thoughts here. So how this is going to work is like all the other review videos I've done. I will be talking about my overall thoughts on the film. Then I'll be talking about spoiler-free stuff. So basically anything that was in the trailers for Jurassic World Dominion is what I'll be talking about. I'll then put up an image or something just saying like spoiler warning, and then we're going to go into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Jurassic World Dominion yet, don't worry, because I'm going to do spoiler-free stuff first, and then I'll give you a warning before going into spoilers. So, yeah, so like I said, I was really looking forward to Jurassic World Dominion, and even the previous two Jurassic World films I really enjoyed. Like Fallen Kingdom I still really like. I do still really enjoy that one. Yes, I'm being serious because I know that one kind of got shit on a bit. But I do really enjoy that one. And after hearing the amount of dislike this one was getting, it kind of, I was going to go and see this one anyway, but it piqued my interest even more so. And after seeing Dominion, I can definitely see why. I can see why people don't like it. And my thoughts have kind of changed since coming out the cinema to now. So it has been, I think 12 hours since I saw the film. And when I came out the cinema first, I was like, I really enjoyed it. I kind of get the hate, but I actually really enjoyed it. I don't really see an issue with it. It is a little too long, which I still think. It's the longest Jurassic film in the franchise at 2 hours and 35 minutes. It is too long. There's a lot of things that need to be cut, and there was a whole plot that just didn't need to be there, which I'll talk about in spoiler section. But at the time I was like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And now that I've slept on it, my thoughts have changed a little bit. So apologies that I'm a little brighter now. My light keeps switching off for some reason, so which is really annoying. But my thoughts have now changed a little bit. I think that there were moments that I enjoyed in the film, but I am overall disappointed. And unfortunately, I can't go into why I was mainly disappointed with it until we get to the spoiler section, because I also can't talk about the plot of this film without going into spoilers. I think the marketing for this film was actually really interesting because it doesn't actually show you what the plot is going to be. And in some ways that's clever, because obviously you're going to get people interested in that, and it's going to make people think, okay, well, what is the plot? Let's go and see it to find out. But on the other side, I wish they had shown us what the plot was, to, I guess, not to lie to us, is my main thing. And that's all I can kind of say on the plot at the moment, to be honest, unfortunately. Another thing that I was excited for was that Sam Neill and Laura Dern are back as their original characters. So that's Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, or Sadler. I apologise if I got the surname incorrect. But they're back from the original films, which I was also excited about. Jeff Goldblum is also in this as Dr. Ian Malcolm once again, and that was something I was really excited about too. So, I have written down notes. So I want to say, firstly, yes, it was too long. At 2 hours and 30 minutes or 2 hours and 35 minutes, it's way too long. There was a few plot lines that I was like, that really doesn't need to be in here. And actually, there was a specific one that adds nothing to this. In terms of the acting was okay. The problem I have is Dominion just doesn't have a good script. Dominion just really doesn't have a good script, and that is a shame. The dialogue is incredibly cheesy and incredibly... I found myself rolling my eyes quite a lot, actually, at the dialogue. And even the way that the lines were delivered, like someone would say something, it would turn to the other character they were talking to, and they'd just stand there emotionless for ages and then start moving or talking. And I was like, what is happening? Like... So it not only needed a better script, it needed a better edit. The actors were trying their best with whatever this was. Yeah, I mean, they were trying their best. I mean, the best sequence, and I can talk about this a little bit because it's in the trailer. There's a section in the trailer that's set in Malta where Chris Pratt, who plays Owen Grady, is being chased by two dinosaurs on a motorbike. And then he goes into like the main square and there's like a carnival there and all that lot. That whole sequence is the best part of the film. Like, that whole sequence was the most enjoyable part of the film. It was the strongest, the most well put together part of the film. And I think a lot of people are going to be quite divided on that opinion. But for me personally, I thought that was the strongest part of the film. It was the most well put together. And the most interesting part, without going into spoilers, the most interesting part. But yeah, they were all trying their best with a very messy and cheesy script and very cheesy dialogue that was pretty terrible. And there was a lot of callbacks to the original Jurassic Park, which some of them were fine, but some of them I was just like, oh, come on. Like, really, are we doing this? You know, the franchise was trying to go for something different, and in the end you're just calling back to the original film. Like, really? I thought we were past this. And even Sam Neill and Laura Dern, like, and I will admit, it's nostalgia pulling. Like, it is nostalgia pulling. That's why all these films are coming back. You know, Ghostbusters, Halloween, Scream, all of these films are coming back. Top Gun, Maverick has just come out. And it is nostalgia pulling. Unfortunately, it does usually work with me. So when you first see, you know, the opening shots of Alan Grant and Ellie, like, and they get introduced into the film, I was a bit like, hey, I'm a kid again watching Jurassic Park. So it did work for me. However, I'm also able to look past that and be like, wait, you're trying to pull our nostalgia to hide the fact that this is not a great film. So I'm not really immune to that. I can see past that. And even they seemed... Like, Laura Dern was actually trying her best. She was probably the best out of all three of the original actors. But Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill just seemed really bored throughout the whole thing. It felt like they were forced into this, and they didn't really want to do it, but they were just like, they got given lots of money to be in this, and then they realised, oh, we're in another Jurassic Park film, great. Like, they just seemed really bored. Laura Dern was trying her best, actually, and I think out of the three original actors, so Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, and Laura Dern, I think Laura Dern was the best one. She was actually trying, and you can see her character in that. Sam Neill, you can kind of see Alan Grant there. Same with Ian Malcolm, actually. But it was like... Yeah, it was like they were bored and tired of being in this. Which is a real shame, because I think that was obviously the big sort of pulling drive to this film. And it's just a shame that... yeah. They just seemed really bored. Bryce Dallas Howard, I apologise if I got the name wrong, as Claire, I actually don't mind her in these films. I think, again, she's doing her best with whatever role they've given her, and I think she could have been a more interesting character, but I feel like the writers were kind of letting her down, and I don't actually think she's that bad in these films. I just think the script is letting her down and the writing is letting her down. Chris Pratt, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. They're trying their best with what they have in this film, and I don't really feel like I can emphasise that anymore. And even his sort of friendship with Blue and all that lot, like, that was the interesting part for me, especially in Jurassic World. Like, he'd trained raptors, and in the first film of this trilogy, you know, the other guy wanted to use them for weapons of war. Like, that was a really interesting aspect and idea. And I can say this, Blue's not in it much at all. So that aspect is now gone, and what you're left with is a Chris Pratt who's just not that interesting. But at the same time, they're all not that interesting because the writing hasn't let them be interesting characters. Macy, who's the young girl, who unfortunately the name escapes me, I'll put the actress's name here. She, and I don't really like to sort of crap on child actors because obviously, again, they're trying their best, but she didn't do a great job here. And unfortunately her accent, so her like posh British accent, never bothered me in the previous film, in Fallen Kingdom. It never bothered me. But for some reason in this one, I think she's tried to emphasise it more. And the second she spoke, like in the first, I think it was 20 minutes of the film, I was like, oh no, is she going to sound like that for the whole film? Is she really going to sound like that for the entire film? And yes, she does. Camera, if you can please focus on me, that would be great. So that was a bit insufferable, if I'm honest. But even she's not in it this much, which is interesting. Like, yeah, this film was just a disappointing mess. And the setup you gave us at the end of the last film was so interesting. And then we get this. And then we get this. Like, oof. And even, I can't even say the visual effects are good. The CGI is not good. It is really not good, especially with the close-ups of the dinosaurs. Like the T-Rex and the Gigantosaurus? They looked cool. Like, they were really cool. And even the Pyroraptor, who's like a feathered velociraptor, they were awesome. They looked really, really good. And I do like that we had feathered dinosaurs in this film. But I mean, by comparison, Amazon TV have just brought out Prehistoric Planet, which is like a Walking with Dinosaurs type show. The CGI in that looks a lot better than this. Like, even, unfortunately, the close-ups were the worst because obviously you can't hide crappy CGI. They look like cartoons. Like, it was really bad. And it's such a shame, especially considering, and I never want to compare these to the original film, because you're never going to get, you're never going to get the masterpiece that is Jurassic Park anymore. And I think a lot of people sort of keep expecting, the next Jurassic film to be another Jurassic Park. No, put that idea out of your head. We're never going to get another Jurassic Park masterpiece film. It's never going to happen. And you have to go in with those expectations and with that mindset. But saying that, yeah, Jurassic Park still looks a lot better. Even Fallen Kingdom looked a lot better. Like, what happened? And it is a shame as well. But I think, I'm checking my notes, I think I've waffled on a lot about the non-spoiler stuff. So I've gone through all my notes on non-spoiler stuff, so I am going to get to the spoiler stuff. So I will say now, I'm going to put up a little image or clip or something, I'm not sure yet. And then we're going to go into spoilers. So if you have not seen Jurassic World Dominion, would I recommend it? I'd say if you've seen Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, I mean, why stop now? However, don't, because I originally wanted to see this in IMAX, and I'm glad I didn't. Like, because IMAX is a lot more expensive than my local cinema. So I would say, if you want to go see it, find it in like the cheapest, go and see it the cheapest way possible, to be honest. So yeah, overall, very messy, disappointing. I kind of enjoyed it, but I was disappointed. And let's go on to the spoiler section so I can explain why I was disappointed. Okay, so here's why I was disappointed with Jurassic World Dominion. The plot of the film is not the plot that we were supposed to be given. So, what I mean by that is, let's go back to Fallen Kingdom. And on a side note, I do want to say that, firstly, I would defend the Fallen Kingdom to the day I die. I actually really enjoyed Fallen Kingdom, and I still do. And I think that the way that it ended with, so I will have to spoil Fallen Kingdom, but the way that it ended was that dinosaurs are now out into our world. We now have to learn to coexist with dinosaurs in the modern world. That's really interesting and really unique to the franchise. And I think that, I do think it got a lot of backlash because of that. And because of like the whole theme of, should we let the dinosaurs die on the island or not? I think that kind of rubbed people the wrong way, and it gave the film a very divided opinion. For me personally, I feel like if you're going to have a Jurassic World trilogy, you can't just have it be stuck on the same island and have, you know, the same narrative and format over and over. You've got to do something different eventually. And I think this was an interesting and natural progression of the narrative. If the way that it was done and the way that the dinosaurs did get out into the real world and the modern world is really stupid, I'm not going to deny that, but they had to do it in some way, especially since this was going to be a trilogy. And I think, I'm not going to say they did it in the best way they could, but they did it in a way. And you kind of had to get to that point eventually if you were going to continue this on, because you can't keep this to just, oh, we're going to do another park again. So now that I've explained that, you'd think the Dominion would be about, okay, how are we going to deal with humans and dinosaurs cooperating and coexisting in the modern world? That's not what we get. So the plot of Jurassic World Dominion is a company called Biosync, who are like an InGen type company, are trying to basically control the world's food supply by releasing mutant locusts into farms across America and eat it. So they would eat every seed aside from the Biosync seed, so then they can control the world food supply. And the main cast have to stop them from doing that. That is literally the plot of Jurassic World Dominion. I'm not kidding. So, and this is the biggest reason why I was disappointed with the film, because it's not the plot that I wanted and not the plot that I expected. You can't just set up Fallen Kingdom or, you know, the next film to be like, have such an interesting idea. You know, humans and dinosaurs are now in the modern world and have to coexist with each other. How are you going to deal with that? Well, how we deal with that is by the end of the film, we just accept that they're with us now. Like that, no joke, that is what it is. Like, you had such an interesting idea. And to be fair, the first 20 minutes of the film, 15-20 minutes of the film, is interesting and is to do with that. So you have, I think it's Now This or Vice News or something, doing like a report on the different instances of dinosaurs suddenly coming into the modern world. which in fairness are the same clips that we saw at the end of Fallen Kingdom. So the Stegosaurus going along the road on that cliff, the pterodon suddenly swooping over a wedding party and eating a dove that's been released, Mosasaurus in the ocean. Like, this is all stuff that we saw at the end of Fallen Kingdom. But to be fair, they do kind of talk about that. And the film opens up with Claire, like, trying to rescue sort of illegal, triceratopses who had been illegally contained. So there is that idea, and I was like, okay, this is interesting so far. This is, like, really, really interesting. And then, yeah, we just get straight into the mutant locust plot. And admittedly, that first scene of when you see, like, this huge swarm of the locusts, like, huge swarm of locusts suddenly fly out from a field and chase after the two kids. And they go into a barn, and you could hear the drumming of all the locusts, like, banging against the walls, which, again, was something in the trailer. But that was scary. But it's like, I don't want a film about new mutant locusts. I want a film about dinosaurs and how we're going to deal with this complete disaster and sudden disaster now. And even, I think it was a year or a few months after Fallen Kingdom came out, there was a short film that's still up on YouTube that was written and directed by Colin Trevorrow. I apologise if I mispronounced that name. But he wrote and directed Jurassic World Dominion and the first Jurassic World. But he also did this short film, which is on YouTube, called Battle at Big Rock. So Battle at Big Rock was an 8 to 10 minute short film focusing on this family who were camping out in the woods. And they come across an Allosaurus. And it's set directly after the ending of Fallen Kingdom. So all of these dinosaurs are just starting to integrate with the modern world. But that film is what I wanted from this. Like, and that's a really good film, because it uses a lot of, it's very tonally in tune with, like, Jurassic Park: The Lost World. So it's very much a short horror film, and really shows you how scary and dangerous these dinosaurs were. But that was interesting, and that got me really excited for what this could be. And in the end, we don't get that. Like, we don't get that at all. Which is such a shame as well. Yeah, most of my notes are to do with just, why did we have this plot? Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, why did we have this plot? It didn't make any sense. Yeah. Like, why? We didn't need this. There's also, I forgot to mention, the other thing that I mentioned in the non-spoiler section was to do with Macy. So at the end of Fallen Kingdom, Macy is revealed that she is a clone. So she is a clone of, I think, her granddad's daughter or something. Which is kind of just sort of thrown in there, but I still thought that was interesting. This film completely retcons that. So this film, she wasn't technically a clone. She was more, I guess, an experiment to see if her mum could, like, create a child and change the DNA so the disease that her mum had would not be in the daughter. And that's what she is. So she's a clone, but she's not really. And firstly, like, no, don't go back on that, on what you've already done in Fallen Kingdom. Like, own it. She's a clone. Keep that. Because while, again, the execution of the way that was introduced was ridiculous, it was interesting. And I feel like after Fallen Kingdom came out, I think because it was quite divisive, it just felt like Universal were like, okay, push back on all the ideas that people didn't like. And this is what we got. Like, and considering this is going to be the last film in the trilogy, I feel like you should have just, you know, own that unique idea. Macy's a clone, cool. We don't need the whole plot line of her being kidnapped to serve, was it Dr. Wu's plot or something? And I didn't really understand what that was to do with either. And I think it was to do with like, oh, she was the solution to the mutant locusts problem because it's gone too out of control and they can't contain it. And I was like, that's okay, fair enough. But again, it's going back to the main problem, which is that I don't care about the mutant locusts. I really don't care. Like the first 20 minutes of the film is really good, and like you could have done some really interesting world building with this new world. You know, there's Macy goes out of the area that she's hiding in because she's hiding from poachers or biosync, and because they want her for Dr. Wu's experiment. But she goes out of town and finds a construction team who have stopped work because a Brachiosaurus is disrupting their work. Like, that's interesting. You've got all these little moments that were interesting, and even at the end they've got all these like really incredible shots, but again you see them in Fallen Kingdom, of like, you know, elephants marching with triceratopses, pigeons flying along with pterodactyls. Like, that's all really cool, and you should have gone with that. And even at the end there's a scene where Alan and Ellie are in a park and they look behind them and there's just a little girl feeding a little compy. Just casually feeding a little Compsognathus. Like, that's interesting. You should have done the world building. I mean, here's my proposal for what Dominion should have been. And it's going to be a completely different format from the rest of the franchise. But if we've gone with this completely wacky thing, then you know what? Just go for it. Dominion should have been an anthology film. So you start off with the Vice News or the From News, whatever it was called, the article at the beginning of the film, and then you use that as like the wraparound story, as it were. So they're reporting on like, oh, this family got stuck in blah blah because of a pterodactyl swarm or something. This wedding has a problem with, I don't know, an Allosaurus or something. And then from there you move to that story. So again, example, like it will report on, yeah, like the guy driving along the road and a Stegosaurus suddenly pushes him off the cliff. And then you focus in on that story. The next one would be about the wedding party and the pterodactyl, and then you focus in on that story. So that's how I feel like they should have done it. And again, that is a weird format, but this went in a wacky direction anyway, so just go for it. I will say though, like I've said it in the non-spoiler section, but the whole section in Malta was probably the strongest part of the film. Like, that was the strongest part of the film, especially where they need to get to is like, oh, there's a really big underground black market for dinosaurs now, and people haven't been able to find it, and you know they've got like velociraptor fights instead of like dog fights or something. People are illegally buying little triceratops pups. Like, that's all really interesting and different, and it's also interesting world building as well, but it's just not there that much, because again, the film's too focused on, we've got to figure out how to stop these mutant locusts. Who cares? Like, who cares? And again, so the strongest part of the film was the whole sequence in Malta. I thought that was the strongest part. Also, I think also the most interesting part was, this isn't to do with the film actually, but this was before the film played on screen. So I went to see this at my local View cinema, and before the film starts, they'll show you like a little video, which is like basically switch off your phone, be quiet, film's about to start kind of thing. But the film basically goes through like a street and then a cafe and then a film studio and then a house. But every now and again I could start seeing like dinosaurs in the background, which hadn't been there before. So they'd changed the little advert for this film. And even the black screen that comes up to say like this is this film is certification, blah blah, for, I don't know, blood, violence, swearing, that kind of thing. That was different. So instead of a black screen, which is what we usually have, they had like a mosaic art piece of a T-Rex, which I thought was really, really cool. And I do like when films, it hasn't been done in years, but I do like when films sort of change things up a bit. But I guess also they wanted to do that purely because this is the last film in the trilogy, which is kind of cool, and it's a nice sort of celebration of the end. But once you see the film, it's like, you know, the trilogy kind of just ended with a bit of a pfft, like just a bit of a poof, and that was it. So, which is a shame. There were definitely enjoyable moments in here, but not enough. There were definitely a lot of suspenseful moments in here, actually, which I forgot to mention in the non-spoiler section. So again, like the bit with the Pyroraptor and Chris Pratt and the other character are along the ice, and they've got to try and get away from this dinosaur while navigating through really thin ice. Like, that was good. There's a whole section in like a mine tunnel, which they don't realise has a dinosaur nest in it. I can't remember the name of them. Has a dinosaur nest in it, which they don't realise, and then they got to get out through the dark because their lights have stopped working or something. Like, that's really interesting. So they did have some really cool ideas in here, but it wasn't enough for the length of the film. And for me personally, like I've already said, I think it should have been an anthology film, because then you could have properly executed the plot that Fallen Kingdom had introduced, instead of just, we're going to do mutant locusts. Like, so overall, would I recommend Jurassic World Dominion? Like I said in the non-spoiler section, if you've seen the previous two films and all the other films, why stop now? But I would say go and see it in the cheapest way possible. I think that the script is a complete mess, and the dialogue is very clunky and cheesy. I found myself rolling my eyes quite a lot. The line deliveries were really bad. The acting was okay, but they were trying the best that they could with a crap script. The visual effects weren't even that impressive, and even Jurassic Park 3 used animatronics a lot of the time, and even the visual effects there still look good. And that was 2001, and is considered by a lot of people one of the worst films in this franchise. Like, those effects were good compared to this. The dinosaurs look like cartoons in Dominion, but most importantly, the plot that it gave us was not the one that we should have got. I don't care about mutant locusts. I wanted to see how the world was going to deal with dinosaurs now suddenly being pushed into the modern world. And you didn't give us that. So, yeah, I would say I enjoyed some of it. It's way too long. It is way too long. I enjoyed some of it, but overall I was very disappointed in it. Which is a shame, because I was really looking forward to that, especially since I do like pretty much all the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World films. I do really enjoy them. Jurassic Park is one of my favourite films. I've actually got, you won't be able to see it, but I've got a Jurassic Park poster just up on the wall behind the camera. It is one of my favourite films. I even like Jurassic Park 3. Like, I unapologetically like Jurassic Park 3. And they are fun films, but this was not, this just wasn't that great. It just wasn't that great. It should have been an anthology film instead. I think that would have worked out better. And actually, if you do want to watch what Dominion could have or should have been, go watch Battle at Big Rock on YouTube. It's completely free. It's a really good short film. And that is what Dominion should have been. So please go and watch Battle of Big Rock. I will leave the link to the video in the description below. Please go watch that instead. But yeah, this was my review video on Jurassic World Dominion. The franchise kind of just went out with a poof. Bit of a whimper. Oh well. But if you have any games you want me to play or videos you want me to react to, or if there's any films or TV shows or anything you want me to do a review video on. That could be another thing, because I do it's quite nice to sort of do these kind of vlogs. It's a nice change of pace as well. So if there is anything you want me to do a review on, then please let me know. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye!